Welcome to the My Story session. I would now request Mr. Ajay Phatak to introduce Mr. Nitin.
So very good evening to all of you. Some of you might know me, some of you may not know me. So my name is Ajay Phatak. Currently I am part of Symphony Teleca and help them run their Pune operations. The idea behind this particular session with Nitin is not to read his resume out, that's not my job, but I would like to figure out how he has made his journey over a period of last several years, since 1987, so a long number of years. I may be doing a little wrong math, so I don't want to talk about number of years. So I would like to actually request Nitin, maybe through a bunch of questions, and the format is more like coffee with Karan, so it's coffee with Ajay, and, except that we don't have coffee. So that's what we intend to do in the next hopefully 30-45 minutes.
So I've had some gossipy questions.
So he has already clarified. In fact, we had a chat at 5 o'clock in the evening, and he clarified that no gossipy questions. So I assure Nitin that there will be no gossipy questions. All right. So I think to get started, I would request Nitin to just give a quick 2-minute, 3-minute view on his journey since he finished his schooling from Canada.
So briefly, I was a pre-med that switched to computer science and flunked my very first computer science course. And then I was determined to, get through it, which I did. And in that process, I actually volunteered to teach computers to kids. And also, we had a program for, this is when the PC revolution started, so we were training lots of government folks in the government of Nova Scotia and down to federal government Canada. We would teach them Word Perfect and databases and stuff like that. I think my entrepreneur journey started right there because I had to figure out how to teach them how to use computers. And that has actually stuck with me all the way through because I learned about customer service. Anyway, so while I was in my senior year, which is my last year in college, a very good friend of mine was filling out some forms, and I asked her what she was doing, and she goes, I want to go to Germany after I'm done with my degree and spend a year abroad. I said, I'd like to do that. And so I followed her trail. I applied for this internship program, and after a few tries, I ended up in Silicon Valley. And I had no idea that that was going to happen. I just put, because you're in Canada, US, it's the same thing. And my goal was to eventually become a doctor, so that was still in the back of my head. And it turned out that the company that I was going to hire me was a startup that was developing actually it was an AI company, artificial intelligence, which you don't find AI companies anymore. You talk about AI, but there are no AI companies. But it developed the first Prolog compiler. How many people know Prolog? Okay, good. All right. So I was doing a project in Prolog. And so they saw that and they go, we want this guy. And I was cheap labor. So the interns are cheap, right? So within 2 weeks, I was in Silicon Valley. I didn't even know where Silicon Valley was. I thought it was in LA. I'd never heard of San Jose. And so, once you get there, it's like heaven. Apple was the hot company, and Microsoft was not hot. For me, it wasn't hot. Sun Microsystems. So I got a chance to work with Sun Technology, blah blah blah. So you walk in, there's about 40 people in the company, and there's a guy who comes in, PhD, who comes in at noon, eats burgers and fries, and has his book pasted. He's reading something. He's doing some. This was a pure R&D company. They weren't interested in selling to consumers. They were basically building AI technology compilers. They were working with the Department of Defense, very high intense stuff. And here I am. I didn't have a master's degree. I didn't even graduate yet. So I had to graduate while I was in the US. But it was a great experience. The first project that got thrown on me was to develop a training class for the users of this one product that I was taking over from a bunch of guys in a university called Technion in Haifa, Israel. So that was my first exposure. And I think that set the tone for me for the rest of my career in terms of what do you need to do with a product. You need to create training materials so the customer can actually use it. And then you got to listen to the customer to make sure that what you build, they can use it. So that was my forte into my own career, and I feel very fortunate that it started off with working for a software company.
Good. So I think
A startup company, I'm sorry.
we already have a bit of background, but my next question is, he decided to move from a startup to a larger company in terms of moving to Mentor Graphics. So why did you actually decide to move to a company which was different than what you enjoyed doing?
I spent 18 months at this company called Quintus, and then my internship expired, and I wanted to explore what else was available. By that time, I learned that there was this thing called H1, and I could get one. And I went to another startup in San Francisco because I wanted to work in San Francisco. And they were doing cool stuff, like all tech nerds. We all want to be on the cool side, right? I joined this startup. They raised $10 million. You go there, no work is happening. It's crazy. Nothing is happening. Every day I go there, what should I do? We don't know yet. We're still working on what we're going to work on. Because they have all this money now. Like they've hired 200 people. So every day there's some coffee and muffin and lattes and typical, even back then, these startups raise a lot of money, they hire a lot of people, and they have no idea what they're going to deliver to the customer. And that was very, very frustrating for me. So I had this friend who was going to go to law school and decided to be a technical recruiter. And back then, we didn't have all these websites and stuff. We had Usenet. How many of you guys know Usenet? Okay, the people of my generation, right? So there was a forum called Miss.jobs, and I was on this. Of course, I have to be on it, right? Anybody who's working in Silicon Valley during those years, you go to Miss.jobs to see what's current outside of San Jose Mercury News. So these recruiters had no idea about any of this. So I said, and she was really frustrated because she's a kind of like an intern, and she's in the middle of these highfalutin recruiters who have relationships with companies, and candidates call them directly, and they make lots of money. They make 20% of the pay. I thought that was a great business for me. I was thinking maybe I should do it, but I couldn't because I didn't have a green card yet. So I said to Lisa, I said, I can get you resumes, because she was frustrated, and all of them were DC resumes. All these guys, right? They're all looking for jobs. So real easy to find candidates, and I gave her a whole bunch, and her first she did 5 recruitments, and within a matter of a month and a half, all came from this jobs, and her competitor, Senior Tech, had no idea where she was getting all this stuff from, right? So that's the value of the internet back in 1988, right? So, and then one fine day I said, what, why don't you find me a job? Because I don't like what I'm doing. But I want to work in C++. Because C++ was just starting to happen. And these guys had said they would do C++, but we were supposed to work on Ada. I didn't like ADA. How many of you guys know Ada? Okay, defense object oriented, really. And this company was CASE, Computer Aided Software Engineering. So I was to work on this tool to generate Ada code. I didn't want to generate Ada code, I wanted to do C++. Because I could see the light. So anyway, long story short, I actually gave her the name of the company that was leading C++ development, and that was Mentor Graphics. And that's why so she recruited me there, and that's why I joined Mentor Graphics, C++.
How did you find Mentor Graphics compared to what you were doing or not doing in your first job?
So it was almost like working at a startup, because they were, just like Microsoft did the Windows 95,